Good morning.
I totally messed up this intro. I
Well,
went I went live and we were just us, not the intro. And then I cued the intro. So, anyways, apologies for that, people, but we're back.
and we've not been here for a few months, so we're a little
It
rusty
shows.
again, obviously.
Okay, I'm just gonna post this to the group and let people know we're on. Then I'm gonna close so I don't have to be kung fu fighting. Just bear with me for 1 second. But how are you, Mai-Liis? How was your summer?
Summer was good. Summer's busy, like it always is for us, with the weddings and the videography and all that. But it's amazing that we were just talking about how time flies. I mean, Christmas is around the corner. You go to the dollar store, you got Halloween in one aisle. Beside it, they're setting up Christmas.
Oh, I was saying it's way too early. Like I love Christmas, but oh my God, like please, it's too early at this point of the year.
I mean, I did walk down the Christmas aisle briefly, but
Of
Scott,
course you did.
I'm trying not to look though because I have so much Christmas. I really don't need any more,
Yeah,
but yeah, I think it's
yeah.
like 11 Fridays or something left till Christmas. I'm not sure. I mean, with us, it's different because I'm already booking Christmas parties in midsummer, and we're already booking into 2026. So time flies faster for the wedding industry. But then also when we're doing the Seeker, we're in September, now working on October. So we're always a
Well,
month
it feels
ahead.
like we're always already in the future because we're doing all that stuff that's about the future. So anyway, it is what it is, and we love what we do, so can't complain.
We can.
Hope
And
you'll
I was looking at our intro pictures from like 15 years ago. We're still
Oh my
super
gosh,
young
maybe
there. So it's okay.
yeah,
We're still young.
maybe we need to kind of uh, fix that.
No, we'll see. I like the fact that we're still quite young. But today we've got a very interesting topic because over the last few months, we've been noticing on Facebook, people have been talking about what's going on in Lamoureux Park at the tent. I think they call them encampments. You know, the safety of walking in the park, all that stuff. So basically, we had a chance to get Cornwall's Mayor Towndale on today to answer
Yeah,
some
yeah.
questions, which is great. We also did almost have Tina and Tyrese, the founders of Unity Street Help Association, with us, but unfortunately, they weren't able to hook up. So we will have them on next week because there's a lot to talk about.
Well, I have a little surprise for you because actually, so the idea of doing this show came about because of a post that somebody in our friends list did on Facebook a few weeks back, and that was Chris Monroe, and
Yeah.
she is backstage. I'm like, I couldn't make
Awesome.
out who she was because it's so little. I'm like, oh, who's this? And she's like, it's Chris. So we're gonna invite them both in, and we'll talk about the situation. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat, and we'll ask either Mayor Towndale or Chris if you have questions for her. But let's bring them in. So here we go. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
All
Welcome.
right. Thank
Oh,
Good
you.
morning.
good to see you, Chris. We were hoping you would be able to join us. So, like Julia said, this show was kind of prompted by your comment on Facebook, Chris. So, can you just let us know a little bit? Chris, by the way, owns Life's Little Pleasures, a wonderful store downtown Cornwall. So, you're very close to the river, and I believe you walk there all the time. Can you just let us know what your post was about?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, it just good morning, Mayor Towndale.
Good morning.
Um I went for a walk one morning before work. That's really the only time I can squeeze it in, and it was 9:30 in the morning, and I had heard about the encampment. I thought it was the other end of the park. I didn't realize the extent it was. It was in the Rotary Gardens and Park. But I was still going to walk through it. I hadn't seen it yet. And I was going to walk through it when I heard screaming and someone yelling for help. I had my phone on me. She was being grabbed and pulled into the wooded area. So I called 911. There was another lady present who was screaming at the man to let her go. Thankfully, the fire department was present. They were at the boat launch doing some sort of activities that day. So while she's screaming, the other lady, the fire department, the woman did get free, but was grabbed again and pulled into the wooded area. The fire department went running in and did bring her out. The police eventually did show up. Everyone, like, I had to stick around and give a statement. The girl, again, you don't know, is she a pedestrian? Who is she? She was part of the encampment, and when the police showed up, she took off. Apparently she's wanted. Yeah, it's just not something I expected on a walk at 9:30 in the morning. And I know I have huge compassion. I know that we need more housing, and there are more building starts in our community, and there are families falling through the cracks, can't make first month's rent and last month's rent. Rents have gone up, and I know, and Mayor Towndale did reach out to me several times after my post, and I know that there are, and I've seen them, and I've even spoken to them out front of the store. There are people that are unhousable. So while there are mothers and fathers and families looking for housing and in need and just need a leg up, there's another group that needs a different kind of help.
So I want to turn to Mayor Towndale and maybe start at the beginning of this. So when would you say that this became a real issue? Because back in, like, I'm looking at 2020, maybe 21 even, like, when did it really become an issue for Cornwall?
Well, I mean, to be honest, homelessness in general has kind of always been an issue here, but it was largely invisible. A lot of the people that were homeless were able to stay with friends or family or couch surf or find ways to stay somewhere within a shelter. But I would say that that certainly changed post-pandemic. And I would say coming into 2020, maybe late 21, 22 definitely is when we started to kind of see the first signs of people living rough in our community. And definitely throughout 2023 is when it picked up in a larger sense, and it became very visible to the community at large.
So how many people are currently residing in an the encampment? Like, are they all individuals? Are there families? Is it like Chris was speaking to, there's two kinds, some that are housable, some that are not? Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so the most current report, and we do get report our staff on a weekly basis, but I have to admit the one I have is maybe a week too old, but we're counting about 30 individuals or 30 shelters that we're aware of on public land in our community at this time. Typically, because of our encampment bylaw, we limit it to one person per tent. Over the years, we've definitely seen a mix. I think predominantly right now it's mostly individuals, adult individuals, but we have been aware of families and children over the past years, but I don't think there's any currently there. Obviously, some of this is protected by privacy. I can't get into details about individuals specifically or individual families. Sometimes too much information can identify them because they're more publicly known, frankly. But I can tell you that our staff are typically down there multiple times a week engaging, and that's staff from different departments. That's housing, police, fire, And housing, I should have said human services as well, because social workers that we have employed with the city go down as well. To Chris's point about some individuals that are unhousable, there is a challenge. Because our housing teams do go down there, engage with individuals, especially people who are new to the encampments, who maybe just got out onto the street, and provide information about housing supports and programs, and what we can do. Some individuals have said no, and we can't do anything if individuals refuse. They have the right to refuse, but there's very little we can do at that point. Again, without going into too much detail about individuals for respect of privacy, there are individuals that were within our housing portfolio. That can include Parisian Manor or any number of our housing buildings throughout the city and the United Counties of SDNG. But unfortunately, for one reason or another, they were asked to leave. And usually that's because of some reason where a rule or something was broken. And as a result, after that, they're trespassed, and we can't do anything after that, unfortunately, for those individuals. So some of those individuals are currently living in encampments, and they've exhausted the options that we as a municipality can provide at this time. And that's a difficult situation as well. One thing you can look at in larger communities or other communities, I'll use Ottawa as the example because it's closer. There's a lot of charities and other groups that are able to step in at that point. And we do have excellent charities and groups like not-for-profits doing work in Cornwall. We could list them off right now, and we probably will get to them a little later in the discussion. But currently, none of them are able to offer really overnight stays, and that's something I know some of them are working towards that, but that does take a lot of time to get set up. Whereas in larger communities, those exist, so those individuals can then proceed to seek help at those charities, not-for-profits, where we don't have that set up yet. So there's a couple of factors there, and this is just laying the groundwork. There's a lot more that we can get into as the conversation evolves as well. But it is difficult. But I do want to tell you that we're trying to do the best we can as a municipality. I know a lot of people out there on social media will say the city's not doing anything. It's far from the truth. I can tell you that based on the last report I got that I just referenced, we've actually placed 74 people into housing or shelter, and that's permanent or transitional. That's not. So while I'm on this subject, I want to talk about the word shelter. Homeless shelters and shelters in general have evolved in general, because typically what a shelter is in a community is you can stay overnight, but during the day you have to leave. That's how they're set up in other communities. What we did was we took an approach, whereas you can look at the Parisian Manor or what we're doing with Massey Commons, and they're more transitional in nature, where individuals get a secured room that they can live in and stay there until they're ready for that next step. While they're staying there, they can stay during the day if they need to. They don't have to vacate every day. And it also provides access to resources.
So it's more of a permanent, temporary thing,
yeah,
than just an overnight.
Yeah, so it provides that opportunity to get at least some sort of security and a routine established, and then supports are provided, whether it be for mental health, addiction, and other services. Now, it's still challenging. It's not always going to work for everybody, and I'm not, when I say that, I'm not trying to throw aversions on anybody, but everyone there is in a difficult situation. We know that mental health is a big challenge. We know that addictions are a big challenge, right? And people fall into unfortunate cycles, and it's tough. It's not, it's easy for us to maybe judge, but we can't do that. We have to understand that everyone needs help, and they're at different stages of this. But I can tell you that from Parisian Manor, 7 people have transitioned from Parisian Manor to the next level. 3 of them are in community housing, and 4 of them are in private rentals. But that means that they've come into Parisian Manor, sought help, gotten more stable, and are able to make that step into the next series of housing, or the next step in their life to get back on track. And that's actually very positive. I think that's a good way of helping these individuals so they can participate in society again, perhaps re-enter employment if they're able to, or at least get back on their feet and have that independence. So that's the approach we've taken. It's somewhat more simple to set up a shelter overnight and just have people come in, but there's no ability to track individuals. There's no ability to build a rapport or trust. Shelters in some places aren't safe. So the elderly and frail are preyed upon by the stronger, and we hear about that all the time. So this is the approach we've taken. It's working, but it takes longer overall. And there is a cost associated with it. We understand that, but we're spending money on that, and we're continuing our builds for housing. We did our 9th Street build a couple of years ago. The Morrisburg build was done recently. Massey Commons is under renovation right now, and Pitt Street should be starting soon. We did have a disagreement with MTO on that for a little while, but we should be able to move past that and start construction there. But that project has unfortunately been delayed, which doesn't help in general. But there's a lot that we're doing. In terms of the housing, those projects alone, that's about $59 million, I believe is the number that the city and the United Counties are spending, with some assistance from the province. But predominantly those funds come from SNG and Cornwall.
So I want to ask a question that I've heard over and over again is, and maybe you can explain how the bylaw works for this. So what I keep hearing is why Lamoureux Park, and how does a space that is so used by the community, how are they allowed to be there? Why not take another space away from the view? Like, I mean, you know, that's what I'm hearing. Because I think there's like a big, people don't want to see homelessness, unfortunately. Like, it's a reality, but like, why not a place, a land somewhere? What prevents you from taking them from there and putting them somewhere else?
So there's a couple things. One thing is, so the court decisions that come out of Waterloo and elsewhere, we've been watching those closely ever since the inception of the encampments and what's been going on. And we've been working with our lawyers, first with our counsel, now with our in-house counsel. As you know, we brought counsel in-house, so we have a lawyer with the city. It's not that simple. Other communities managed to do it before the courts made a ruling, but it's tricky. So the advice that we have from our legal counsel is that we can ask people to relocate, and our encampment bylaw is done in such a way that you have to move every number of days. I believe it's 90 days, because the courts have deemed that reasonable. So maybe I should back up a little bit. The bottom line is the Ontario Superior Court has ruled that if you do not have a home, you are unhoused, you are permitted to stay in public land, publicly owned land, period. There are some setbacks and restrictions that you can set as a municipality, but we're restricted on what we can do there. So we have setbacks for playgrounds, for municipal facilities. We now have it for water, which encompasses the eco park, things like that. And then there's a requirement to move every so many days. That's what the court has deemed as reasonable and allowable. Anything other than that, we would be breaking the court's ruling. We'd be in violation of that. And, I'll get back to the other municipalities in a second. But as council and administration, we can't put the city in a position where we're doing something illegal. That's just not, we can't do that. So that's where our hands are bound in this case. What we can do is limit the size of encampments. We currently allow 5 tents grouped together, and the tents have to be for shelter purposes. They can't be used for storage or anything else. Our bylaw and housing are down there to enforce that. We have to give time for compliance. And now that the eco park is off limits, essentially because of the setbacks, slowly the numbers of encampments within the eco park are reducing, but we have to give people time to relocate. When it comes to the other communities that were able to establish large encampments, it's a bit trickier too, because I'll use Barrie because that's the most recent example, and everyone's talking about.
Yeah, I was just going to bring it up because just last week they declared a state of emergency, right?
Yeah, so there's certain considerations there. So what they did is they created a very large encampment on public land and had everyone move there before the court made a decision. It was allowed to stay there. There were some issues happening there. If you look up the actual, if you read up on what was happening there was a drug dealing going on in there. There was a murder that took place, and then they disbanded the encampment. It's gone. So all those individuals are now back downtown along the sides of the roads, which is actually a common sight in cities like Toronto and Ottawa. If you've been recently, you see that everywhere right now. Barrie is twice the population size of Cornwall, but they have anywhere between 800 to 1,000 homeless people right now. That number is far greater than Cornwall. Like I said, we're tracking 30 encampments. We know the number is not accurate, but we're doing our best. If people see tents or encampments, they need to call our housing staff to let them know those individuals are there. But we've been methodically putting people into housing whenever spaces come up to try to mitigate the numbers of people who are on the street, minus those who have said no or those that we've had to evict. Barrie declared a state of emergency, but when you look at what happened there, it's understandable. I've asked for a copy of the declaration, but I want to say a city can't just declare a state of emergency for no reason. because you have to declare it. It goes to Emergency Management Ontario. You make the province aware, but you can't just do it on a whim to get more resources. It's very controlled, and I am the only individual in the city who can declare an emergency, but I need to do it if it's justified. And right now we're not at that stage. It's not justifiable, and it would be an abuse of that authority and power. Barrie's a different situation. I think realistically, perhaps for them, the situation has spiraled out of control, but we're not seeing that same level here. Now, I do want to comment. Obviously, what Chris witnessed is very disturbing. It's very serious. We've had other issues and other complaints about individuals being attacked. I followed up with the police. They're increasing patrols in the park. Bylaw will as well. One thing that I want to reiterate, though, is that it needs to be reported. And Chris, you did the right thing. But there was a recent other social media post where an individual was discussing how they were attacked. The police had no record of that. I asked the police. There was no call, no call from the individual, no report after, nothing from a bystander, nothing. So people get upset, and I understand that, and people get angry, and rightfully so, especially when people are getting hurt. But if there's no report to the police, what's the action to be taken?
Yeah.
What's the follow-up? And it's the same thing with everything we do. If there's an issue, there needs to be a complaint and a paper trail. If individuals are dangerous, that gives us perhaps other abilities. We can argue back to the court saying that's why the individual has to be moved, or we have to take extra steps. But without that proof, or without anything like that, we don't have anything. And courts have a very high threshold. We deal with problem. This is a bit of a related but separate issue. We deal with problem properties in Cornwall all the time. We've shut a few, right? The Care Center is a big one, a very famous example of that. There were other houses in Cornwall we did that. But you have to reach such a threshold to do that, where all options have been exhausted, and the court is satisfied that every attempt has been made to fix the situation before you do that. It's something similar here. Every step has to be taken first. So if we just come in, first of all, we can't forcibly move people. That won't work, and it's not allowed. But if we have the ability and we have a reason to perhaps increase our tighten our bylaw or increase the setbacks or the restrictions, we can justify it that way. But realistically, at the end of the day, and I've heard the police chief say the same thing, the argument that people have generally is with the courts, because they've decided what we can and cannot do.
So what if so you're saying we can't move them now? What if there was a location where there was garbage disposal, there were washroom porta potties set up for them, where there's actually the community's helping them in other ways, and so relocating them with some additional services?
Yeah, again, we can ask them to move, but I will say we do have porta potties in the park. I understand we might need more, and our staff do go pick up the garbage. They collect it. Now, I understand there's maybe been some issues recently, so we'll look into that. But again, we can ask them to potentially relocate. We can't force them to. That's the same.
In the bylaw, though, Justin, there is a stipulation about safety, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What's the definition of that, or how would you define that? Because what I saw, that could have been someone walking by. I know that I went down, I had a Rotarian come in, and it was the Rotarians would go down and they would do cleanup, but she doesn't feel safe going down there. So, and I didn't feel safe going down there alone. So we went down there together. Her husband didn't want us going, so he came, and she wanted to walk through, and so that pathway. And but when we got there, we did have some city officials there, city workers, fixing a hydro pole because someone had hooked something up that they shouldn't have. So they were doing repairs, and we were advised not to go in. So we did not. But she really, because it was normal for her to go in there and through there and do cleanup, and advised not to.
So yeah,
so is that not a safety issue?
Yeah.
So a public safety issue.
Okay. Yeah. No, and that's fair. But I would go back to, has that been reported to bylaw? Our police are increasing patrols, and that's following that.
Right.
The Eco Park now, everyone living there has to relocate.
Okay.
off limits to encampments period. So that's ongoing. That's what
Okay.
the bylaw has in it. And that bylaw was actually passed prior to your post, Chris, but we have to give them time to relocate. So there is a delay there. But certainly, like, this is where incidents need to be communicated to, they have to be reported. You have to put it in writing and give it to us in writing to tell us. And specific incidents, again, I go back to that. It's one thing, and I get people get frustrated and they go to social media and they make posts. That's great, but if there's nothing we can fall back on that's actually like solid that we can use, we can't use posts from social media necessarily as the backing for this. The court won't necessarily say that makes sense. So we need more. We need a little bit more. I know people won't like to hear that, but it's the truth. This is a difficult situation and it's not easy. I wish I could wave a magic wand and make everything better for
Yeah.
everybody. I can't.
Yeah, I know you don't want this, and I know you're inundated, and along with all of council, I know, like, nobody wants this for our community, and yeah, we're at a crossroads, it seems.
Yeah, we are, and I understand that. I think we're doing what we can within the bounds of the law. We're trying to do our best. Obviously, we're not perfect, and I'm not saying everything we're doing is the only option. We're open to doing what we can. I know there's been a lot of different questions put around about options. I won't rule out tiny homes. That's something we can look at. We again have to find the right location. But I will say this: while communities are doing that, we did Parisian Manor, right? So it's just a different option.
Sure.
We had a building available. We decided to lease it and put people in a building with 30 rooms, as opposed to getting tiny homes. But when you look at them, and the rooms are self-contained, right? They're individual units. But the idea there is that was an option that we took, which at the time made sense from an economic and social aspect. So I think it's every community will be a little different in terms of what we can do and what we approach it.
So we have a question here.
Yeah.
Individuals with severe mental illness who refuse help, how does the city navigate the line between autonomy and necessary intervention, especially when public safety is at risk?
That's a good question. That's a difficult one to answer. I'd have to ask someone who's an expert in that field for help and advice on that, to be honest with you. I'm not an expert on mental health. I think perhaps I could ask our staff or the Canadian Mental Health Association for guidance on that, because they would know best on how that works. But certainly we have the V-Smart team, which is an intervention team with the police. There's a social worker embedded with police officers who respond typically when there's a mental health crisis. So they get involved to assist with that. But I don't know if I can provide a clear answer on that without guidance from someone who's an expert in that area, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah. So, but do you know if like mental illness is a huge part of what's happening?
I know it plays a very strong, it plays a very strong role, because individuals, when they become homeless, it puts a huge mental strain on individuals who experience homelessness, and it affects your mental health to the point where it can degrade substantially, and it can have that impact. So yes, it does. There's always a call out for more mental health resources. The city, we have social workers that work for us. We have part of our medical recruitment. We just recruited another psychiatrist for the area. We're doing what we can in that regard, but we don't directly provide mental health services. We partner with local agencies like the Canadian Mental Health Association and the hospital for that. But certainly we know we need to do as much as we can there, but we're not the experts in that field, I'm afraid.
Yeah, because I'm kind of seeing a lot of posts showing that people are self-medicating with the addictions, and there's needles and everything all over the place. But again, with that kind of thing, instead of posting the pictures on Facebook, they should be forwarding them to you then.
Yes, I would say our housing and bylaw departments in general. I can send them off, and I'm happy to do so. But if you want an immediate response, like some people are looking for an immediate response when they send something over, it needs to go to the right department first, because there's no guarantee I'm going to get to it immediately, or that I'm able, because then I have to action it too as an extra step. But yes, I would say that anything coming to the city should copy me on it at the very least, so I'm aware of it.
Okay.
Okay. Somebody says social media. Oh, you want to do it, Mai-Liis? Go ahead.
Okay, I'll do this one. So social media plays a big role in raising awareness about the topic. But do you think the
concerns are warranted?
Yeah, or blown up
or blown out of proportion?
I think all concerns are warranted. I think certainly this is a serious issue, and we're not alone in facing this. This is an issue facing all of our country right now. Every city in the country is facing homelessness. Some urban centers or hubs, will say, see it a bit more. I mean, if you go out into the counties, the smaller townships won't see it as much because those individuals are coming to Cornwall and we're aware of that.
Mhm.
I think that perhaps the approach that people take, I understand social media, I understand people who are upset, and that's kind of the reaction we have these days. This is 2025. What do we do? The first thing we do, we go to social media to express our feelings and concerns. But certainly I think making sure that there's follow-up, those concerns are brought in a constructive manner
Mhm.
and highlighted to the right people, then it's helpful. I mean, I do get inquiries and I respond. Some people take that information and go through and understand it. I do say some people just ignore it and just say fix it. Again, I wish I could. You know, it's easy to look at the city and say we should be doing everything we can, but we are. The other thing is you're not going to see everything that we do front and center on this, because that's just not how it works. Our department is focused on the work. Our employees are focused on the work. You're not going to see an update every day on social media about the steps we've taken. Every time that we take someone off the street and put them into housing, we're not going to post that. When there's milestones like the opening of Parisian Manor, we did. When Massey Commons opens, we'll highlight that, right? But we're not, for privacy's sake, we're not going to show you who's going in there. We're not going to identify it. We'll give you statistics. But those are on an ongoing basis. It's not an everyday thing. So there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes that you don't see. I like to quote Councillor Bennett on this, because he engages with the public a lot in his day job, as you all know. And he'll tell you, we spent hundreds of hours on this, and that's all staff across the city, that's council, that's everybody. It's not as if we're just turning a blind eye to it. It may seem like that, but that's because a lot of the meetings and discussions that are had, they're not open to the public. There are housing staff and human services staff coming together and working. Whenever clients are taken in next door at the Justice Building, that's not a public process. People don't see that, right? So it's not something that's evident that's happening necessarily.
I want to say that it's very reassuring though, because you're always there. Like whenever somebody posts on Facebook, you're honest, you respond, and you contact that person. It's reassuring to the public to see that, because you're actually not, like you said, complacent or turning a blind eye, or you address it head on. So it's very reassuring.
I appreciate that, Julia. Thank you. I have to admit, I'm not as active on social media as I once was, as you all know, but I find it difficult to stay up to date on everything going on.
I don't blame you, because
I've backed away.
Yeah.
your mental health is
place.
also worth something, right?
Yeah. I would say that that's why I ask people to reach out to through official channels, because then it's easier not only to receive, but to make sure it gets actioned.
Yeah.
Things on social media, they tend, like the way the messages work, right? They get pushed down if I don't check it daily and then go. And sometimes I have to go back and follow up, and those things are not always the highest priority because they fall off the table. Whereas like email, phone calls, they're easier to kind of keep track of and keep on. I know that if people call the office here at City Hall, my assistant France, she's great. She'll try to help you, or she'll direct you to the correct department for assistance as well. And that can be a quicker response too. I think it's all about the timing and the response. That's where I go back to your previous question. I say all concerns are justified, but I think the way we approach and highlighting those concerns, first of all, constructively, but also just making sure it gets the right people. Because when people say, oh, this happened, did you see it? Maybe I didn't. I think it's not always possible to see everything happening in real time.
There is so much happening, like on social media. It's like you're bombarded with stuff that you can't keep track of everything, for sure. Direct. So people, you have it. Direct messaging is the best way.
Yeah, maybe we could get your contact so people do have your email and a phone number to reach you at.
Yeah.
We can put that.
Isn't it just mayor@cornwall.ca?
Yes, that one will work. Yes, that does come to me. Yeah.
Okay, I have another question here. Somebody asked about policing. Is the city considering any bylaw changes that would give more authority to move people along if they refuse housing or pose safety risks?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I would say that the encampment bylaw, as it's written now, does give some authority there. If people refuse to move, there can be next steps. If they refuse housing, that's part of the legal quandary we're in right now. That's part of it. The courts have said they can stay in the park. If they say no to us for housing, we don't have a remedy that we can do legally necessarily there. Again, we can ask people to move. We put a time limit on how long people can stay in one spot, and then they do have to relocate. At that point, there can be enforcement. But when it comes to going to a specific location, what our lawyer has said is we can ask them, but we can't say you must go here.
So
That's the challenge.
same spot being like, could they just take the tent off and pitch like 2 meters away from that same spot, or like does it have to
I have to
be
double check.
significant?
Yeah, no, thanks. That's a good question. I have to double check. I'm sure it outlines it, but I'd have to double check the bylaw. I don't recall that particular section offhand right now about how far the relocation distance has to be. There's another point I wanted to raise in there, and I'm sorry, I just forgot it. But I know that maybe I should talk about trespass a little bit. In Canada, trespass is not a criminal offense. It's more of a regulatory, statutory thing. So it's trickier because if someone is trespassed from a property and the police ask them to leave, I don't know what the outcome of that is exactly, because we've had instances where people have come to City Hall and harassed staff and they do get a trespass order, and when they come back, the police come and they leave, but they leave willingly. I don't think we've ever had anyone say no. I assume they can be removed, but my understanding is it's not a criminal charge, it's a fine in Canada. So that's a bit of the dynamic as well.
Yeah, my kind of concern is with the colder months coming, what is going to be done to help these people? And basically, again, if they say no, and they will just stay in the park then.
And then what happens is if someone passes away out in the cold, then it gets thrown back in the city's face because look at our situation, look at our homelessness.
Yeah.
Why aren't you confronting it? But I know there are people down there that, again, like Justin said before, are unhousable.
Yeah.
For different reasons, and but there are people that will refuse shelter. So
yeah.
So, but just a quick question. Maybe this is a dumb question, but if somebody dies on city property, is the city liable?
That is a good question. I think it depends on the circumstances. That's my best answer there. If we, the court or insurance or anyone would have to decide who's liable, right? So I don't want to get too far down that hole because of liability and legality, but I think that's a good question, and that's something our lawyer can answer. I can't answer that. I'm not a legal expert. But to touch on your point, so last year we actually did partner with the Agape Center on colder nights where the doors were open. And that information was passed to those in the encampments and those who were living outside. It wasn't really publicly spread because it was for those individuals. The uptake was a little low, I'll be honest with you. Over the course of the winter, the Agape told us they had 9 visits. And that could be the same person coming 9 times. I don't have the details on who did what, but I have the numbers of who came in overnight. So there was some uptake, not a lot. This winter, we'll be looking at solutions like that again. I understand it, I do. But again, it goes back to the willingness of the individuals. They ultimately have decision-making authority for themselves. I understand that we could get down into the question of if people are fit to make decisions, and I'm not going to touch that. That's a whole other discussion. But if we offer that option and it's not taken, we can't force it. We cannot force someone to go. But we can provide the option, and we did last winter. But it's up to the individuals to accept that.
We have another question here. What kind of training or resources are Cornwall police and bylaw officers being given to handle complex mental health or addiction-related calls in encampment?
Thank you. That's a good question. So with the Cornwall Police, I can speak to that. Certainly, there's the V-Smart program I mentioned where there's a social worker who goes with the police. Police are now receiving more training when it comes to mental health across the country because a lot more calls police are getting deal with mental health in general. I wouldn't necessarily say our bylaw officers are the experts in that. If they encounter it, they would be told to call the police and get the V-Smart team out there for response. Again, if there's a specialist team designed to work with individuals who are experiencing a mental health crisis, the best thing to do is to contact the experts. And there is obviously funding that goes along with that. Like there's funding allocated in the police budget for this. I want to, when we talk about resources, that's the kind of thing. It's an individual social worker plus the funding that goes along with that to ensure that position is stable. Other than that, it's
Okay, so
No.
earlier you said that the city is working with organizations. Can you give us like what organizations are you working with? I know the Rotary is involved, I think. So who else? Like, is there clubs? Is there like I know Unity Street is another one. Like, who is all involved into this?
yeah, there's a lot of groups that do work directly, like Unity Street, right? They're literally on the ground there doing that work. Center 105 is a big one that's been doing excellent work in our community, and I have had meetings with their Center 105. Within the Anglican Diocese of Ottawa. That's the overarching organization. I have met with the Archbishop and representatives from the Archdiocese on how we can work more closely together. And I think we're looking at options there, but we're still having discussions on that, so I can't talk about that right now out of respect. But certainly they do a lot. Agape Center does a lot. A lot of these organizations are able to provide assistance during the day. We know there's a bit of a gap overnight, and that's something we're looking to address. Again, as we're looking to address that, not all options are finalized yet, so I don't want to necessarily talk about that. But I gave you the example of the Agape Center over the winter last year, opening their doors overnight, having someone on site to assist individuals who are coming inside. The other groups that are providing help do so on a basis of providing meals, low cost or free meals to individuals who need it. Center 105 specializes in breakfast. Agape specializes in lunch and dinner. I know I'm missing one in there. I want to say Salvation Army, I think, provides meals as well. And what they did is they got together to sort out the meal schedule so they're not overlapping. So they cover more people that way, and that's excellent. I think they all deserve a lot of credit for the work they do. The city has provided some assistance in various ways to these organizations to date, but it hasn't been full funding yet or any sort of operational funding yet. Those discussions are ongoing, but again, because we're not there yet, I don't want to get into that. That will require formal approval, which again, we're not quite there yet. But we did provide water drinking stations at the Agape Center and Center 105 for fresh drinking water. Typically, whenever they have asks, we're able to accommodate whatever those asks are, but they're minor in nature. There's nothing major yet. But as mayor, I will say I'm looking forward to expanding some of the cooperation with these groups that are on the ground and providing more support on an ongoing basis. But I do want to single out, the Agape Center has been in the city for a long time. I just, also I want to highlight the United Way, the work they're doing, and I know they're looking to take on more responsibility and expand on that as well. So there's more coming there. And I think the Anglican Diocese, though, in particular, has stepped up in a big way in our community.
I have a question.
Yep.
Are there people in our encampments that aren't from this area? I do know, and it was, again, someone not from this area that came to this area. It was very public, and she has left the area. I'm just wondering, what percentage, or do we have a number of, say, moving from a larger center to our area when we don't necessarily have all the services that to help them?
The short answer is yes. I don't have the percentage of the breakdown. It's challenging because when someone's here, they're now our responsibility, regardless of where they came from. So, it does add additional strain on our resources potentially. We do have a concern of people coming. I don't want to sound heartless when I say that. I want to be very clear, but we are aware of individuals who have come here from Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, wherever. There's not much we can do to stop that. Freedom of movement is a guarantee in the charter for that. So once an individual's here, they're eligible for assistance. I know that particular individual. We did provide assistance prior to all that, but it's a privacy issue. I can't get into specifics of that assistance, but I can tell you they did receive assistance. at one time. So uh, it's tricky.
Now,
Now, are other communities sending people here? Like, because I've always heard
Mhm.
that where when they're trying to clean up their area, that one-way bus ticket somewhere.
Mhm.
And is that kind of what's happening?
I know that we used to do that. In full disclosure, uh, I don't know. I don't know specifically. Typically, whenever a community does that, they're supposed to reach out to the receiving community to contact their social service, say, hey, we're sending someone because we don't have the resources. But I don't think they're doing that anymore. I think they're just giving them tickets. It's not a really humanizing way to deal with the issues, and frankly, it treats people like
No.
cargo. It's almost like I'm
Yeah.
shipping a parcel, as a person.
Yeah.
So that's I know what's happening, but I don't have a lot of detail. And I don't have the breakdown of numbers.
Well, I know at one point there was a lot of homeless people camping out in the doorways of the businesses down Pitt Street,
Mhm.
right? And I was actually told by one of the businesses that he found out that some were being shipped from outside because
Mhm.
apparently we had more resources than where they came from.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and you know what? I want to elaborate on that point a little bit. I see the question, but just give me 1 second to touch on something similar. Where some of the properties that we had to close as a municipality because of negligent landlords or violations in terms of the building code or just the health of the tenants living there or nuisance properties. When we close it, we have to find housing for those individuals as well. So they because they're homeless, they do get on the list, like one of the priority lists. It's tricky for us. When the care center closed, we had to rehouse all those individuals, and some people accepted help, some said no. Same thing goes for a property we closed recently at Amelia and First. We had to rehouse all those individuals or try to rehouse all those individuals, and that adds to the number of people we're trying to find space for. And if people are coming here, it's the same thing. We can't discriminate based on where people are from. Once they're here and they meet the criteria and they're in our system, they're on our wait list. And it's not a unified wait list across the province. It's our wait list within this region. And we go from there.
Mai-Liis?
well, basically, we've got this question. For the homeless and people whom are about to be homeless, why does housing make you go through hoops to get into low budget housing? Also, why, if you've been on the housing list for 6 years, why has that file been closed and you have to reapply again?
Well, thank you for the question. I mean, there's some specifics there to a specific file. I can't comment on those because I don't deal with those files. So unfortunately, I can't comment on that. I would argue the hoops, while the regulations are there, they're set by the province and what we can do for affordable housing. We manage it, but guidelines are passed down to us and eligibility is passed down to us. So they may seem like hoops, but they're there for a reason. It's regulatory to confirm eligibility and whatnot. I mean, if the individual wants to send me by email a complaint or feedback, I'd be happy to follow that down and work on that, because some of the information seems to be private. I can't talk about it in a public sphere, but I don't have familiarity with the files because I don't know everyone's individual file. So if they're...
Does this all go through Cornwall and Area Housing?
Yes. It goes through our Housing Services Department and our Human Services Department.
Can you give us an idea of what's the waiting list look like right now? Like, if we know there's a housing shortage, but how much of a housing shortage?
The last number I saw could have been 700. I don't have a sorry, Julia. I think I keep cutting you off. I think there's a delay in the...
No, it's me too.
Okay, sorry. I think it's about 700 on the wait list. I have to get an updated number. I don't have it in front of me. I do apologize. And I know it's anywhere, like it varies based on situation, right? The situation determines priority. I know some individuals who are precariously housed have an urgent situation, but there are sometimes individuals who bump them, unfortunately. So it could be 5 years, it could be longer. I know that wait times vary drastically. So when I use that 5-year number, I know there's going to be people who tell you, I've been on the wait list longer than that. And I understand that. That's why we're trying to build more housing and trying to get there. But unfortunately, it's not a fast process and it's expensive. Ontario is the only province in Canada where the municipalities have responsibility for housing. It used to be a provincial responsibility, and it is still as such across the country. So it is challenging, as I mentioned. The last projects we built in Morrisburg and here in Cornwall 9th Street, we received provincial funding, and we're very grateful for that. But the majority of the cost was borne by the city and the United Counties of STG as partners. So it is trying for smaller municipalities to float those costs. And construction costs are rising. They've gone over, ever since the pandemic, 20% year over year. Inflation, everything, now tariffs, everything is adding to the cost of construction. And there's nothing we can do to stop it.
Tax burden.
So I guess that answered the question that was on the screen as well, because they're asking what the city is doing to fast track the development of truly affordable housing, not just more condos or single family homes.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, part of it is, in order to have a healthy housing market, you do need a mix of housing. It can't be just one type or the other. 9th Street is 77 one-bedroom units. Morrisburg, oh boy, I might get this wrong now. I think it was 14 units overall. I think they're all one bedroom as well. Pitt Street will be, the first phase is for 27 multi-bedroom units. I believe they're 2-bedroom. Massey Commons will be 22 units overall, with 20 one-bedroom and 2 two-bedroom units. And those are projects we're taking directly. Now, on the other side, we're trying to partner with private developers or provide incentives for them to build. I mean, the building at Montreal Road, that's going to be, I believe the number is 160 apartments. I got that wrong last time. And half of those were committed to meet the CMHC definition of affordable. Now, I will caveat that CMHC definition of affordable may not reflect the reality on the ground. And we know that, and we've communicated that to them, but they don't always listen to us, unfortunately, and it is frustrating. So that's when we partner with builders like that and provide incentives for the building side of it, because that property is in receipt of a brownfield grant because it's a former gas station. That's one way we can try to encourage housing stock, but also affordable housing stock. But I think we need to make sure that it's a mix, because it's, when a building is built, say it's a condo, it's not going to be accessible for everyone. We understand that. But there are people who will buy it to rent, and then there's people who will move. They will leave where they are to move into there, and that does free up housing, creates a domino effect. It's not perfect, and I know it doesn't solve the problem, but I think we have to focus on a variety of uses and a variety of housing types to really have a successful housing market. One thing we saw during the pandemic is that there were homes in Cornwall, especially older homes, that had been cut up, or maybe I should say divided, not cut up, into multiple apartments, right? Especially the older homes in town that are larger. Some of those homes were purchased and used as a single family dwelling. So say you have a 3-bedroom apartment, now it's housing one family, you've lost 2 rental units. So, and that's a challenge, right? But that's something we can't control. It's within the private sphere. So the best we can do is try to make up for that by trying to, again, partner with developments for apartments. Beginning of this year, we approved 1,000 new doors of different housing types. And I do think that's positive. We just have to get there. And some of the construction and what's coming is slower, unfortunately. It takes time. Things do move bigger, faster in bigger cities. Internally, we've brought on 2 planners. We've rejigged our development department. We're trying to make it more efficient. And I think we've seen some results there. I know we're getting feedback that it is going better on that regard. So hopefully that will help greenlight more projects as well.
Awesome.
I know somebody does have a question in the comments, but I think you've already addressed this kind of thing. Can you not move homeless to the Vincent Massey beside the PV Mart lot?
Short answer is no. We don't own that property. That's privately held. We can't relocate people with private property. We can't do anything like that. And I think, whenever we were looking to establish Massey Commons, we got feedback. Well, why don't you go here? Why don't you go there? Well, we don't own that property. The Gladstone School, before it burned down, was owned by the hospital. They still own that site. But frankly, that site's no different than the other site. So it's tricky. I hear all the time, well, there's all these empty buildings. It's not exactly true. There are some empty buildings, but they're either not for sale or they are in use, but people don't understand they're in use. So it's not always clear that there's people assume there's space when there's not, right? It's not a clear path forward. So it's a lot more challenging. I think part of this is we haven't seen homelessness visibly in Cornwall before. This is a first-time thing that we're seeing it, but it has existed here. We can't deny that. That is the truth. It was invisible before. Yeah. There are communities where it has been.
There was a lot of transient. There was a lot of people. I've been downtown a long time, you'd see a new face, and they're just kind of on their way through to a major center. I know my mom lives in Coburg. Coburg has an encampment as well, and it's smaller than Cornwall.
Yeah, and that,
So it's not just
no,
us.
it's not. And I think that's kind of the challenge, because it is happening elsewhere, but each community is a little different. I think it was last year, Belleville declared an emergency because of because they, within 24 hours, they had a substantial number of fentanyl overdoses. And
Yeah.
that was very serious. And then we have Barrie declaring their emergency now. Part of that, I think, is because of the approach they took, trying to group everyone together in a single space. But that's just my hot take on that. But I think we have to realize this is happening elsewhere, not just in Cornwall. It's happening across the country. There's different solutions. We've taken an approach, like I mentioned, right now it's Parisian Manor as well. So when people ask why we don't have tiny homes yet, it's because we have a building. We went with a building as opposed to tiny. But I'm not ruling out tiny homes. I'm not ruling out anything. All options are still on the table.
So is anyone using Parisian Manor now?
Still, as far as I know, all 30 rooms are still occupied at this time.
Okay.
I again, my numbers, the update was, I think, last week, so it's a little or the week before, so it's a week behind. So I don't have the accurate information right now, but it's still.
So the housing is really, it wasn't just a winter fix for people during the winter. How is it that we have people that are homeless and unhoused, and yet Parisian is still up and running? Why can't it be? Because it's available. There's a shortage of long-term housing, but we have a short-term shelter right now. And why is it that they can't be mandated to stay there just for shelter?
No, it's a good question. It's because right now it's full based on the terms of our lease and what we've established there as our program. That doesn't mean we can't look at expanding that potentially, but I will say it would require potentially updates to the building. So we'd have to budget for that and then do the work. So it adds more time and expense there. I'm not saying that it's not worthwhile. It's just we have to look at that. It's not. I think when we initially established Parisian, we were able to capture most individuals who are living outside.
Yeah.
Those numbers have changed a little bit now, right? So they're fluctuating, and that's part of the challenge, because as much as we'd like to turn on a dime or be quicker, and we should be, it's difficult sometimes.
This is like there's a lot of red tape, right? Like you're if you were to create a homeless shelter, it has to have this and that and that and that before you can. But at the same time, you're looking at, okay, well, isn't the building in its current state better than nothing? Like, but yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, and that's why our experts in this are our staff who work on our human services department, our housing department, and that includes social workers, are the ones that are looking at the best options here. We have individuals who've worked for United Ways elsewhere and have worked on files like this before, and they have the experience. So they are looking at this with very, very a very good focus, and with like that experience, that knowledge. It's not. What's being done isn't just being done on a whim. It's being done because there's a reason for doing it. It's thought out with, we're measuring results, and we are seeing results. It's just unfortunately going slower than we'd like.
So it's unfortunate, like the questions are coming in, and I know we're out of time, but I just want to ask this one last one. How do you feel about opening an emergency homeless shelter in Cornwall?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, that's I see that's from Tina, and thank you, Tina, for the question. I think so. When we opened Parisian Manor, that was the intent, right? To get people off the streets and get them in a place where they have shelter and they can receive the resources they need. As I talked about, the shelters in general, you can stay overnight, but you have to leave during the day. That is the model that is adopted in major cities across the province. We took a different model where we're providing rooms for people where they can stay and they don't have to leave. That's the model I'd like to pursue. As I mentioned, we did partner with the Agape Center last winter to have people come in when it was cold. I'm not opposed to doing something similar. this winter, obviously, and trying to create that. And as I mentioned, we're looking at partnerships with some of the charities that are currently helping those who are unhoused at expanding their services. And again, I can't get into more detail because those communications and those discussions are ongoing. So I can't talk about it because it's not committed to yet. But we're looking at potentially options there that would provide that kind of service potentially. But give us a little bit of time. We're entering our budget season soon. We need the budget for it. So I just want to stop there and give it there. Not opposed to it at all. Just we need to do it so we can make sure it works and that we allocate funding to it.
Well, thank you so much to both of you. Thank you, Mayor, for taking the time to come to speak to us and the people. And thank you, Chris, for coming and relating your experience. And maybe we'll do a follow up in 6 months or something, see how it's going.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
That was actually very, very interesting because we got to
Very
see
informative. Yes.
what is going on. Whereas people on Facebook are just, thinking nothing is
Well,
happening.
I think it's important to go to the source and ask, you know, the proper people because,
Yeah,
like, social media is like, it's like a big dumpster fire. It just spreads, and
yeah,
then you don't know what's what. And so everything was addressed. I think they did a good job at, expressing the concerns of the citizens and what the city is doing. And I'm glad to see that they're doing, the best they can.
yeah. And I see now more questions are starting to come in. So next week we are looking at having Tina and Tyrese from Unity Street Help Association on with us. So,
Yeah, you
uh,
bring a different aspect to it because they're on the ground, so
yeah,
they'll be able to talk more about what they're seeing
yeah,
and maybe offer different perspectives and different solutions.
yes, exactly. So that's our show for this week, I guess. We're at 11:01
Yeah, so thank you for watching. We're glad to be back, and we'll see you next week. Have yourself a great day.
and a super duper week. Bye for now.
Bye.